Jack the Ripper is one of history's most notorious killers. The Ripper, who stalked the streets of London's Whitechapel area during the 1888 Autumn of Terror, has fascinated the public for 136 years. Despite multiple investigations into the Whitechapel killings, the Ripper's actual identity has yet to be revealed. Various hypotheses and ideas have been proposed, but no formal consensus has been established on the Ripper's identity. In recent years, however, fresh data and analytical approaches have pushed researchers closer to an answer than ever before. Welcome to Bad Things, and today's video on a new possible suspect in the Ripper murders, Hyams. Even with the new data, Ripper enthusiasts are still divided. Officially, Jack the Ripper's identity is unknown, although there are a few possibilities with somewhat convincing proof. In all, 5 women's murders were officially attributed to the Ripper. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes and Mary Jane Kelly are known to be Ripper victims, although more victims are suspected. In July 2023, the Independent newspaper reported that Sarah Bax Horton, a former police volunteer, claimed to have identified Jack the Ripper, citing medical records and witness descriptions of the man allegedly seen with the killer's victims moments before they were murdered. Horton's great-great-grandfather, Sergeant Harry Garrett, worked on the Ripper investigation in 1888, which sparked her interest in identifying the infamous serial killer. After re-examining the same documents as her relative did 136 years ago, Horton concluded that Hyams was Jack the Ripper. Who was Hyams, and how has he suddenly appeared on the ever-growing Ripper suspects ledger? Hyams was born in Aldgate on February 8, 1855, to Fanny and Solomon Hyams, and had been identified as a cigar maker in the 1871 census. By 1881, Solomon Hyams had abandoned his family, and Hyam, then 26, was living at 26 Mitre Street in Aldgate with his mother, 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Hyams' occupation was recorded as a fruiterer in the 1881 census. Hyams married a woman named Rachel sometime around 1881, and by 1888, the year of the Ripper murders, the couple had 2 children, William and Kate. On the morning of December 29, 1888, Hyams was taken into custody by a Metropolitan Police officer in Whitechapel and sent to the Whitechapel Workhouse Infirmary, which was essentially a dumping site for mentally ill people. His condition was classified as delirium tremens, which was classified as a disturbed state of mind characterized by hallucinations and frightening delusions caused by chronic drinking. This was just the first of many stays in lunatic asylums until his death in 1913. Various descriptions of Hyams' mental state exist from observations at these asylums. Among these were his having a weak mind, being violent and dangerous, especially to his wife, and epileptic and irritable after fits and addicted to drink. When he wasn't incarcerated in an asylum, Hyams' violent behavior was far worse than when he was confined. Hyams was released from Colney Hatch Asylum in 1889 as recovered, but only 10 days later, on September 9th, he was admitted to the City of London Lunatic Asylum in Stone, Kent, as an insane person for beating and stabbing his wife. Interestingly, he was referred to as the terror of the City of London police. According to the case notes, Hyams' wife claimed that she had 4 miscarriages as a result of her husband's increasingly deranged behavior, fueled by his paranoia that she was unfaithful to him and that he had suffered from epileptic attacks and had become increasingly violent over the previous 9 years. Hyams died in Colney Hatch Lunatic Asylum on March 22, 1913. Epilepsy and cardiovascular degeneration were listed as the causes. Mental health issues were by no means uncommon in 1800s London, with accounts of asylums overflowing being the norm. Just because Hyams was a violent, mentally ill alcoholic, did that mean he was the Ripper? Ripper enthusiasts and researchers are known for being extremely thorough when researching suspects, and Hyams as a suspect has turned up some damning circumstantial evidence. When discussing circumstantial evidence, remember that the phrase has somehow been distorted to mean that this evidence doesn't prove anything. Circumstantial evidence is defined in the American pattern jury instructions as evidence of a fact which does not directly prove a fact in dispute, but which permits a reasonable inference or conclusion that the fact exists. The U.S. Court of Appeals has recognized that circumstantial proof is as probative as direct evidence and may even be more persuasive. After looking into Hyam's life, it's relatively easy to see why some consider him a suspect in the Whitechapel murders. First and foremost, he was declared to be insane and became progressively more violent as his mental health deteriorated. He had stabbed more than one person with a knife, including his wife. He was initially hospitalized 7 weeks following the murder of Mary Kelly on November 9, 1888, at which point the murders abruptly stopped. He was born and raised in Mitre Street off Mitre Square, where Catherine Eddowes was murdered on September 30, 1888. Eddowes' body was discovered outside the rear window of number 8 Mitre Street, a company run by Mr. Taylor in 1888, but had previously operated as a cigar manufacturing business by none other than Hyam's uncle, Louis Levy. According to the 1881 census and the 1884 London Business Directory, another of Hyam's uncles, John Levy, lived at 254 Whitechapel Road, where he ran a cigar manufacturing company. The day after Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes' deaths, Thomas Coram discovered a large knife wrapped in a blood-stained handkerchief on the steps of number 253, next door to Hyam's uncle's address. Although this circumstantial evidence is compelling, Sarah Bax Horton thinks she has the proverbial smoking gun to prove that Hyams was Jack the Ripper. Witnesses characterized Hyams as a man in his mid-30s with a stiff arm and atypical gait with bent knees. Bax Horton discovered that Hyams' medical notes, which were written when he was 35 in 1888, recorded an injury that left him unable to bend or extend his left arm. He also had an uneven walk, an inability to straighten his knees, and asymmetrical foot dragging. For the first time in history, Jack the Ripper can be identified as Hyams using distinctive physical characteristics, Bax Horton has said. In the Ripper files, which Bax Horton believes lines up with her findings, eyewitnesses said the man they had seen had a peculiar gait. He seemed to be weak at the knees and wasn't fully extending his legs. When he walked, he had a kind of shuffling gait, which was probably a side effect of some brain damage as a result of his epilepsy, she continued. Bax Horton also discovered that witness accounts of the Ripper's height and weight were similar to the details in Hyam's medical files. They saw a man, possibly the Ripper, of medium height and build, between 5 foot 5 inches and 5 foot 8 inches tall, stout and broad-shouldered. Hyams was 5 foot 7.5 inches and weighed 10 stone 7 pounds. His photograph demonstrates that he was noticeably broad-shouldered, Bax Horton would tell a news outlet. Bax Horton has said that Hyams is on a long list of around 100 suspects, but had been discounted because he had been misidentified. When I was trying to identify the correct Hyams, I found about 5. It took quite a lot of work to identify his correct biographical data. Hyams has never before been fully explored as a Ripper suspect. To protect the confidentiality of living individuals, 2 of the Colney Hatch Asylum files on patients, including Hyams, were closed to public view until 2013 and 2015. Is this evidence enough to conclusively add Hyams to the list of credible suspects in the eyes of die-hard Ripper sleuths? Bax Horton's book, One-Armed Jack, Uncovering the Real Jack the Ripper, based on her research, has unfortunately not been well received by reviewers or on forums discussing the Ripper cases. One reviewer on Amazon said, "The organization of this book is a bit chaotic. It doesn't tell a coherent story, but instead offers observations and rampant speculation to support her theory. Unless I missed something, the author offers zero evidence that the man she identifies is actually the killer. Still, it's a worthwhile read for those with a particular interest in the subject matter." Another Amazon reviewer wasn't as subtle in their thoughts of the new suspect, saying, "Another disappointing book on the Ripper, this one based on the totally implausible speculation that a one-armed man could silently bump off a series of streetwise Whitechapel prostitutes. Really? Whatever next? Sincerely written, with the best of intentions, but way off the mark. Sorry." Backs Horton's bold claim that, for the first time in history, Jack the Ripper can be identified as Hyams using distinctive physical characteristics falls short of the hype created around the book and the added generational investigator angle used to promote her theory. The Jack the Ripper case seems to remain a mystery until a new suspect surfaces. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.